of good governance, including transparency, accountability, participation, and effective and efficient use of public sector resources. Indeed, innovation in public service delivery has proven a powerful enabler of transformation and development for smaller island development states like the Bahamas. Information communication technology and e-government can present tremendous opportunities to reduce vulnerabilities and isolation, and to promote a holistic and integrated approach towards sustainable development at all levels. I therefore would like to thank the organizers for allowing us to emerging issues and trends, and ultimately to share knowledge that has the potential to benefit all communities on this planet. I'm confident that we will shed new light on the important role of the public service in the pursuit of the Sustainable Development Agenda in the post-2015 era. With this said, I wish to formally introduce my co-chair, Information Communication and Technology Vice Minister of the Republic of Colombia, Maria Isabel Mejia. She's the Vice Minister of IT, Government, CIO, ICT, Ministry of Colombia. Maria Isabel studied systems and computer engineering at the University of Los Andes in Bogota, Colombia, where she also did a specialization in information technology strategic management. With over 30 years of experience in the field of information and communications technologies, working in public entities, private companies, and academia. She was the coordinator of the year 2000 Y2K project of Colombia, responsible for the actions required by the country to meet the Millennium Change. She coordinated the design and implementation of the risk mitigation plan required by both public and private sector. Between 2000 and 2006, she became the Executive Director of Computers for Schools program, designing promotional strategies, granting management, computer refurbishing, giving educational support. Such program benefited millions of poor children around the country nowadays. In 2006, she was responsible for the design of the National E-Government Strategy and was the director of the program until 2010. In this role, Maria Isabel managed to position Colombia as the leader of the Latin American e-government, and she also led the country to occupy the 9th place worldwide on e-participation. From 2010 to 2012, she was the general manager of Marinas de Colombia, a Colombian company with foreign capital responsible for the construction and execution of Marina Puerto Valero, the most complete and modern marina being built in the Colombian Caribbean. She is currently the Deputy Minister of Technologies and Systems Information, a position from which she will play the role of Colombia's CIO. I will now introduce you to the presenters in the order in which they will present. The first presenter is Inam Karimov, Chairman of the State Agency for Republic of Service of Social Innovations under the President of the Republic of Azerbaijan. He'll be speaking on enhancing public service delivery in the context of post-2015 development agenda challenges and strategies. Mr. Inam Karimov is Chairman of the State Agency for Public Service and Social Innovations under the President of the Republic of Azerbaijan. Previously, he worked as advisor in 2002-2004 and senior advisor 2004-2012 at the Presidential Administration. 2005 to 2012, he was Secretary of the country's Anti-Corruption Commission and head the Azerbaijani delegation in the Council of Europe's Greco Group of States Against Corruption, where he was rapporteur on the situation of corruption in several Council of Europe member states. Mr. Karimov holds a bachelor's degree in law from the University of Strasbourg and an LLM and PhD from Sorbonne University. Presenter number 2 on innovations for public service delivery in local governments for implementing the post-2015 development agenda will be Mr. Hassan Noor Hassan, the Secretary of Administration and Head of Administrative Services, the Ministry of Devolution and Planning from the Republic of Kenya, who would actually be a substitute presenter as the substantive presenter was delayed by his flight. Presenter number 3, Innovations in Gender Responsive Service Delivery for Post-2015 Development Agenda will be Begonia Lagazipasta, Chief UN Women at the Republic of Azerbaijan. Begonia Lagazipasta is currently the acting head of UN Women's Policy Division, prior to which she was the chief of the Leadership and Governance section. She has over 20 years of professional experience, including, since 2008, UNIFEM and UN Women. She was a member of the Spanish Parliament for 12 years, 1996 to 2008, and played an active role in establishing more than 150 laws in areas of women's rights, gender equality law, elimination of violence against women, international development, and cooperation in economic, social, and justice rights. And our final presenter will be Ms. Rowena Bethel, Director and CEO of the National Insurance Board of the Bahamas Government, Commonwealth of the Bahamas. Ms. Bethel is the Director and CEO of the National Insurance Board, the principal social security agency for the government of the Bahamas. Her professional career has included providing independent consulting services on e-government, info communications law and policy, financial sector regulation, and international tax cooperation. Previously, she served in senior executive roles within the Bahamas government for over 27 years, until August of 2011. She's a former legal advisor to the Bahamas Ministry of Finance and Executive Commissioner of the Compliance Commission, the anti-money laundering supervisor for non-traditional financial institutions. As legal advisor, Ms. Bethel provided specialized service in the area of e-government and National Information Society agenda, the privatization of the Bahamas Telecommunications Company, the state-owned telecoms incumbent, regulation for both the financial sector and the communications industry, and cross-border tax cooperation. She is the architect of a number of landmark enactments that include the full suite of e-commerce enabling legislation passed in 2003, the Electronic Communication Transaction Act, the Computer Misuse Act, and the Data Protection Act, the Cross-Border Tax Cooperation and Tax Information Exchange enabling legislative and administrative framework. Ms. Bethel was a member of the Tax Information Exchange negotiation team of the Bahamas since 2000 and served as a lead negotiator for the tax treaties and tax information exchange agreements. I now introduce you to the first presenter, Enhancing Public Service Delivery in the Context of Post-2015 Development Agenda, Challenges and Strategies, Mr. Enam Karimov.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Madam Chairman, for giving this opportunity. I would like to commence by stressing how honored I am to participate in this year's United Nations Public Service Forum. I'm representing Asan Service from Azerbaijan, which was selected as the first place winner of the 2015 UN Public Service Award. Held annually, this forum serves as an indispensable platform for international community to discuss salient problems to the public service delivery and its enhancement. It equally serves as the excellent gathering to analyze strategies and solutions for effective response to challenges in this crucial sphere. I wish to thank the United Nations Secretariat and the Government of Colombia for the excellent organization of the event and preparing thought-provoking agenda to guide our discussions. Ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, in the last decade, Azerbaijan has been among the fastest growing economies in the world. Owing to strong national policies, Azerbaijan has managed to maintain positive trends in the sphere of economic and social development. The poverty in the country has been declined to the maximum. Advancing and diversifying economy, promoting social welfare, and creating a better life for the people have been the top priorities of our government. In December 2012, President of Azerbaijan approved the development concept, Azerbaijan 2012, towards an innovative and diversified economy. The concept is Azerbaijan's national strategy to attain sustainable development in all areas. One of the cornerstone issues of this development concept is the public administration and modernization of institutions. Proceeding from this concept, several years ago, President of Azerbaijan, Mr. Ilham Aliyev, launched comprehensive reforms in the public administration sector. The core objective of these reforms was to increase efficiency, effectiveness, and the transparency of public services. It was declared that all the state policies in Azerbaijan serves to the citizen's interest, and the citizen is in the center of all the state policies. Azerbaijan follows the course of modernizing public services by applying advanced technologies and innovations. As a result of these reforms, public services are now delivered to citizens, to the public in a new, modern, and most comfortable ways. And by the way, one of the successful results of these reforms was the establishment of Asan service. What's Asan service? What does it stand for? You would be interested to ask. Asan is an abbreviation. It stands for Azerbaijan Service and Assessment Network. But in Azerbaijani, it has a meaning which means easy. Most of the people, if you would ask in Azerbaijan what the Asan stands for as an abbreviation, they wouldn't know. But they know very well what the easy stands for. And it creates an expectation from our citizens that the state services, public services, need to be easier. So how Asan did render state services easier? First of all, Asan is a single place where many state services are rendered from this place. Asan is a space where 10 ministries and more than numerous public sector companies give their services. Now in one single place in Asan, you can find more than 25 services, including private sector services and state services. So the first condition of easiness is to find all the services in one single place. The second pillar of the easiness was to provide the comfort while providing our services. The convenience of citizens and their easy access to services was our primary goal. The centers offer top quality conditions for citizens. They are well organized, citizen friendly, and show a genuine commitment to public service. That's the second condition of easiness. The third one was providing total transparency at all the levels of state provision on state procedures. Our customers get information, necessary information at all the stages of public service delivery. Before they come to Asan service centers, and while they're in Asan service centers, after they leave Asan service centers, by the new technologies, and we provide this information proactively. There is a huge campaign of public awareness conducted in the country. That's the third condition of third mean that by the means of which state services became easier. The fourth one is are other innovations that we apply. All the services are provided in a more innovative way by the use of most developed, the advanced technologies, information boards, and like electronic queue machines, biometric data system, electronic complaint kiosk, electronic information terminals, etc., etc. That's the force, the mean that made the state services easier. The fifth one is the accessibility of the services. Now, in Azerbaijan, we have 9 service centers. The two more are coming in this year. And one of the particularities of the accessibility and uniqueness of the ASAN service centers, we have 2 types of ASAN centers. One is static ASAN service centers, building that were built, which is more or less 5,000 square meters. And the second means is that by the help of buses, we provide services in the rural areas. It means that in the villages, in the rayons, that administrative districts, we provide the services at the door of our customers. And the third type of mobile services that in the city itself, in Baku, in the other cities, you can have mobile, inner city mobile service. What does it mean? It means that for any reason, for example, changing your passport, driver's license, or if you want to get married, or get your birth certificate, if for any reason you would not wish to come to ASAN service centers, it's not a problem. You call us, we come to your house, to your workplace, or to the place that you're resting. So we come to your house, to the place, and we give the services right on place. But, of course, imagine you want to change your passport or your ID, but you don't have time, so there's no problem. We'll come to your office and change your passport right in your office. Of course, this type of service is given with extra service fees. But the goal is not to earn money from this project, but to guarantee social solidarity. Those who afford to pay such services finance the services for the handicapped that you can see from the pictures, that for this category of persons, these services are totally free of charge. So it guarantees also social solidarity in the provision of ASAN services. This is one of the buses that go to the rural areas of Azerbaijan and provide services right on the place. And the other condition for the easiness of ASAN service, other mean, and I would say that was the most challenging, the most difficult part in our work, was to provide the principle that the citizen is always right. Not the public official is always right, but the citizen is always right. Even though our custom is not right, he should be right. For that one, for this purpose, we organized thousands of ethical trainings, psychological trainings on stress management, on the management, on the work with difficult clients. And today, it's a well-established principle in Azerbaijan that the customer of the public service is always right, even though he's not right. So I give you a few means that made the life of our citizens easier, made the public services more accessible to our citizens. And ASAN was established 2 years ago, and I will give you some statistics that we have served 5 million people during 2 years' time, and the satisfaction rate in ASAN is 98%. And also in the rural areas, we have served also more than nearly 2,000 customers which live in the rural areas. So that's what has been achieved, of course. And I'll come to the topic of our presentation, challenges. What are the challenges that were faced, as in all the countries? Today, we have 98% of public satisfaction. And the first challenge is to be able to keep that level of public satisfaction. Because if 2 years ago, the services that were provided were easy or interesting or accessible, and were surprising sometimes that imagine somebody's knocking at your door and giving you a passport while you're at home, or if you want to get married, we can do it anywhere you want, in restaurant, somewhere, you call us, to be sure that she doesn't change her mind. Just call her. Yeah. But in the coming years, the public expectation grow. What was surprising now, 2 years ago, will not be in 2 years. So the challenge is to keep that level of public satisfaction and to go with the expectations of the public. And for that reason, we have to implement many measures that I would say public expectation of our customers getting more modern. So that's what we have to modernize ourselves. And the first mean is to enhance the electronization process in the public service delivery. Azerbaijan now implements important measures for the e-governance. There is a single e-government portal from where you can get services. There is a enhanced electronic signature system in Azerbaijan. For example, you can establish a company with a mobile telephone, which will take you 5 minutes without going anywhere. So the e-government changes its type, nature. We want to have mobile government changing from e-government to the mobile government. So you will be able to have all the operations, at least some of them or most of them. And I think that, as you know, it's not possible to do, or not recommendable maybe socially, to have 100% electronic services. You need some kind of social human factor in the public service delivery. But nevertheless, you'll have many services by mobile devices, which will mean that in the mobile telephone, you will have your government, your assigned in your pocket. So the government will be too close to you. But of course, it requires to take many measures like providing the security of the data. We have to keep the right balance between the transparency and the privacy. Privacy, transparency doesn't mean intrusion in the private lives. It should be directed towards the governments, not to the persons. So the main issue is to guarantee the privacy of our customers. And the second big challenge is, as it was mentioned also in the presentation, to keep the professionalism and ethical integrity of our professionals, our public servants. To discharge its function properly, the public administration and consequently public service delivery system need well-trained and skillful public officials. These should be professionals capable of handling model tools and lead processes.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Peter. I'll thank Dr. Karma for such a wonderful presentation.
Okay, I understood the hint. So, let me finalize with the final words, saying that we as ASAN are prepared to serve as a good example in this particular direction. We will make further efforts to maintain our adherence to the well-deserved title of this Best Public Service Provider and winner. And I think this forum provides a wonderful chance, wonderful forum to change the best experiences, and we will continue our efforts. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We now hear from our second presenter, Hassan Noor Hassan. His presentation will be on innovations for public service delivery in local governments for implementing the post 2015 Development Agenda. Mr. Hassan.
Okay. Thank you. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, may I take this opportunity to sincerely thank the people of Colombia and the mayor of this city for hosting this very important event and welcoming us in a very wonderful way. I stand here to represent my cabinet secretary, who is on the way coming. It's such a long journey from Kenya to this part of the world. She will join us later in the day, but I am here to represent her. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, my presentation is going to center on innovations for public service, for service delivery in local governments, for implementing the post-2015 development agenda. The presentation will take about five formats. The outline is, you can see the background, public service delivery challenges, common strategies and approaches innovation in service delivery, Huduma Kenya, the new phase of public service, and conclusions and way forward. Governments have responsibility for provision of services and oversight of the same, both at the national and local levels. In doing so, government faces a number of challenges, including ever dwindling resources, increasing demand for services, rapid population growth, and increasing citizen awareness of their rights, among others. In addition, the rapidly changing technological and digital landscape demands new approaches to service delivery. Emerging lessons from the implementation of the Millennium Development Goals underscore the importance of local governance for improved service delivery. Consequently, the post-2015 agenda underlies the importance of bringing local and regional perspectives for sustainable development, a process referred to as localizing the post-2015 agenda. In view of the above, innovation in public service delivery is imperative. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, public service delivery is characterized by apathy, inertia, integrity crisis, and all kinds of problems that have faced the public service in its delivery of its services. The photograph you see there is a typical public service delivery point in Kenya before the introduction of the new process that we are going to describe later. This is a very important house. Sharia House is what is called the law house. That's the place where we register all our companies, we register our marriages, we register our births and deaths in the capital city of Nairobi. That is a government office. The post-2015 agenda calls on the government for effective provision of public service, improving universality of services and aligning public services with what citizens are demanding. In many cases in the developing world and many parts of the world, you realize that citizens are demanding for their rights, for better services, some at a time violently. This requires governments to, among others, to embrace e-governance, to increase efficiency of government operations, strengthen democracy, enhance transparency, and provide better service to citizens. What citizens want is 3 S's: speed, simple, and seamless. And therefore, what citizens expect of its government: accessibility across the entire country without any discrimination, availability 24/7, acceptable, which are uniform standards across the board everywhere in the country. Common strategies and approaches in innovation in service delivery, integrating services, leveraging ICT, decentralized service delivery is some of the key highlights of our initiatives. Collaborations and partnerships entails partnership with local, state, and non-state actors. Engagement with citizens includes consultation and dialogue, as opposed to what it used to be in the past. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to present to you the Huduma Kenya program, an initiative that has been introduced to Kenya within the country that has become very successful and is a household name. Huduma stands for service. It's a Swahili word. Swahili is the first national language in the country. The Kenya Huduma program is aimed at transforming the public service towards a people-centered, professional, efficient, transparent, and accountable service that meets global standards and best practices. Huduma Kenya has 5 one-stop shop channels as platforms for integrated service delivery. Huduma centers, that's where the walk-in system. We have Huduma web portal, Huduma mobile platform, Huduma call centers, and Huduma payment gateway. In addition, ICT systems have been deployed to facilitate service delivery. This includes virtual desktop infrastructure, ticketing and queue management system, electronic and instant feedback devices. Other Huduma Kenya ICT projects include Huduma call centers, e-online, the Huduma mobile platforms, and Huduma service smart card. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a typical Huduma center. If you look at the picture that was there earlier, and this picture are completely different systems. We have a well-trained staff, properly trained in customer satisfaction. Customer is the core values for which they stand for. This is one of the Huduma centers in one of the remotest part of the country. In many cases, in many places in the developing world, infrastructure, the physical infrastructure of roads is a major challenge. And therefore, this is a very remote part of the country, and we have standardized services in the capital city of the country in accordance with what we have in the rural areas. This is a very remote part of the country. Huduma Service and Payment Smart Card. This is an electronic smart card which has all the necessary security features. We have collaborated with with the people who have been in this field for many years, and therefore these are cards that's going to be transforming how government does business to its customers. The services offered are both at the consumer level, at the commercial level, and the public sector level, as you can see there. Key results and impacts. 21 Huduma centers have been established in different parts of the country within 1 year. What started as a pilot project has transformed the entire country, and there's a very high demand for the next 1 year to roll out the remaining Huduma centers to cover the 47 counties in the country. Each center provides 35 to 44 services from various government agencies, depending on local needs. The center is currently serving more than 15,000 people per day. This is a transformative service delivery point. Customer satisfaction in the centers is averaged at 93%. This is the survey that we've received from our customers in terms of feedback in real time. The Huduma program is contributing to the improvement of doing business index, renewing trust and confidence in government by the citizens. The bar has been set very high currently. Every government service in the country is being now told, develop the same standards with Huduma or you don't exist at all. Therefore, the Huduma service has catalyzed all other services to come quickly and start moving in the direction of Huduma. In conclusion, governments need to embrace the new post-2015 agenda and the principles of universality, good governance, and effective service delivery that are tailored to the citizens' needs. In the face of continuing fiscal burden and increasing levels of demand, there is a pressing need to enhance the collaboration across the public sector in order to adopt a coherent and multi-agency approach to citizens' needs. Target services to where they are most needed and to respond and adapt to a rapidly changing world. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, this Huduma Center was presented in the APAM Africa Award in Morocco, and we won the first position. Today, I've just been told the APAM competition that is going on in Congo, we've equally won an award. Thank you very much. Muchas gracias.
Thank you so much, Mr. Hassan. That was good, particularly since he was a last-minute sit-in. We now hear from our third presenter, Mrs. Begonio Lagabasta.
Muchas gracias, señor presidente. Permítame, en primer lugar, agradecer al Gobierno de Colombia y
of Colombia and the city of Medellin for its hospitality and all of its work to be able to organize this forum. Also, to all of you who have come from so far away to share with us all of your experiences. Firstly, I'd like to make an analysis of what's being done in 2015 in terms of gender equality, which has been crucial. This year, we made an assessment of the 20 years of implementing the Beijing platform in the 12 pillars, and obviously public services were and are still critical to achieve the implementation sought. We have advanced, but also we've seen that this advance, allow me to say, is painfully slow. We still need many things to do. We advance in gender equality, but it's not something that reaches all women. There's a difference that has to do with class, race, equality, and others. This year, and this analysis is also key because, as it was said this morning, we have a negotiation of what is the agenda for the next 15 years, a global agenda, universal agenda that will transform and which no country can escape from implementing in its social, economic, and environmental dimensions, and an agenda that will be approved in September when we have in the first draft clearly the objective number 5, which is gender equality through different results. But also, the gender equality has to do with dimension of gender, and this is key to conceive many other results, such as poverty eradication, water, conceiving sustainable cities, peace, education, etc., etc. I don't want to forget another important milestone that's ad hoc of next month. In Addis Ababa, we have all the member states for the 3rd conference on financing sustainable development. This is key for gender equality. So we have to conceive, and we'll be introducing these topics in the document per se of the member states, a financing model that will establish the commitment to finance commitments made for gender equality and women's empowerment. And there's another milestone we have this year, which is the 15th anniversary of the approval of the Security Council of Women, Peace and Security Council. Of all of these commitments, gender equality is relevant, and public service as well. In a post-conflict agenda, if public service is not designed or established or devoted to comply to the needs of men and women. We know that no country today has closed the gaps of gender. There are many that have discriminatory laws. We have 128 countries, more or less, that still have laws that discriminate somehow women, either access to land, property, the difficult access to inheritance, or limitations to top positions. And really, experience has shown that women and girls have multiple limitations to access top quality public services, and the non-existence of these services for women and children give way to the persistence of gender differences on a global scale. We can talk about health, education. We could talk about the struggle against violence against women. We can talk about economy and care. But this is key, where public services determine the existence of equality or inequality among women and girls. But this is not a topic which is enough on human rights, but in turn it has a negative impact on the economic growth of societies, on their sustainable growth and their development and peaceful context. We are aware that many times some poor public services lead many people to have to be in debt because of this. And we know that many times women are the most affected. We heard this morning that here in Colombia, for instance, that women and girls can access education, but if there are no good public services to access education, girls especially end up not being in school because they don't have water, sanitation, because they get married too early, they have kids too early, which is, of course, a problem for their health. We know that violence against women and girls is an epidemic, a global epidemic, and this is how it's been rated. More than 75% of women and girls, one time or another in their life, are victims of physical, sexual, or psychological violence. We know that there are laws, and 125 countries have signed laws, but these laws are not good if they're not implemented and applied. And public services, we also know, must be comprehensive. They must have a holistic dimension. They must address the prevention, protection, and repair of violence against women. We're talking about true helps, true aids, helping or assisting women psychologically, healthcare aid, places where girls and boys can feel secure, where people can go after they suffer violence. We talk about the social integration of these people through public service. We talk about a full dimension of comprehensive public services which lead to particularly eliminate the terrible task of violence. And what about economics and the economy of taking care of yourself? It's interesting that when it comes to gender equality, the Sustainable Development Agenda will be approved in September. Point 15 recognizes clearly that the need of public service faces everything has to do with the economy of care, with the conciliation of life in labor and in family for women. We are aware that this is a big problem for women. Allow me to provide you some figures that can give you a context about this. For instance, in average, women make 2.5 tasks more than men. We know that girls transport most of the water in 70% of the homes that do not have direct access to drinking water. We know that 40 billion hours per year in sub-Saharan Africa, women and girls collect water because there are no public utilities. We know that this is equivalent probably to a full year of working of the entire workforce of France. But allow me to talk about developed countries. The total value of taking care of girls and boys in the States reached in 2014 $3.2 billion, meaning 20% of the GDP. This is a global problem. But we're also aware that if we don't have public utilities, there's a problem for employments in women, which is worsened in that gap of salaries with the so-called penalty of maternity, which is a phenomenon known and not that much known, which affects all women everywhere. We could say, for instance, that in Southern Asia, this gap of women that have kids earn 30% less, or in the States where single women earn 96 cents per dollar of a single man, while women that are married only earn 76 cents. In Germany, women can earn 40% less than men during their job life, and this is seen in each and every country of the world. That's why we deem that when we talk about innovation in public utilities and in public service, there are some things that are basic, but when we talk about gender-related public utilities, these are innovative. For instance, we've got to have a context that addresses the entire setting that permits equality in public services for the best provision of public services. Second, we need to design public services with the participation of women, that they can take decisions chosen and as part of the public administration, but also by civil society or women's movements. We cannot have public services for the population without keeping in mind women. And also, we have other data, such as when there was an increase of women that were council members in India, how public services and infrastructure and needs that directly affected women and children increased substantially, something that in Norway is the same. So we're talking about all types of developed countries in the world. And also we have another series of elements that are key. For instance, we need to combine economic and social policies that will lead to decent jobs for women. And in the fifth place, we have to look at the macroeconomic policies, which have a gender profile. There's nothing in the world in policies, macroeconomically, that does not have a gender perspective. Allow me to finish touching three innovative topics. One, there is a proper financing of public services, and for that, these are designed by gender. As women, we have intervened in many countries like Colombia, where we analyze budgets that are sensitive to gender, where public services can have efficiencies that are different. This is truly important. Let me allow, with these 2 minutes, these last 2 minutes, talk about two things. One are innovative gender services and accountability. We heard this morning that the Colombian authorities want information, access to information, transparency, civil society participating, women participating, and we want accountability. We want to know in the budget and in the design about the efficiency of public services and how these have benefited women and men. But also we want to intervene in the differences of classes, urban, rural, all of the type of women. And I'd like to end by saying that for efficiency, we need data. We need to have proper monitoring with gender perspectives, assessments with gender perspectives, and statistics. And all of us play an enormous role to determine statistics. We have very few statistics. We haven't introduced gender perspective in collecting data. And that's why if we really want the agenda of post-2015 to be successful, we must see how to monitor, assess, and conceive the data that is key. We have agreed where we'll have 52 indicators of gender statistics in different categories that will be key to make the assessment, and 9 indicators in terms of gender violence. So, as I said before, you are all main players to make this monitoring, this follow-up, to know what works and what does not work. Allow me to end by saying that there is no public service that has nothing to do with gender. There's no public service that is only provided to men. And also we need to have public services that can conceive the 3 big keys for a world in peace that respects human rights in a world with sustainable development. Thank you very much. Gracias. Gracias, señora Lazaga-Aster. Ahora tendremos la presentación del último presentador, el ministro de Finanzas de las Bahamas.
switch?
Sure. Sure.
Sorry, start again. Thank you very much, Chair, distinguished Chair and guests. I too would like to thank the Government of Colombia for hosting what I consider to be an extremely important event, one that focuses on essentially how countries survive in today's world. Through their public administrations. I also would like to express a little pride in the Latin American countries for the simple reason that I come from the Bahamas, and this part of the world was opened up by the first step being taken on a little island in my country called San Salvador. So I do take pride in being in Colombia and feeling a connection of some sort. My presentation will focus on e-government as a driving force for institutional integration towards effective service delivery and sustainable development. My job is probably made a little bit easier at this point, having had the benefit of concrete examples of this taking place first in Colombia, followed by the example in Azerbaijan, and finally the examples of this sort of driving force taking place in Kenya. What I will do, therefore, is just focus essentially on the underlying principles that support a move in the direction of relying much more on e-government for institutional integration and effective delivery towards sustainable development. My agenda is very simple. I will look very quickly at my definition for the purpose of this presentation of e-government, what the institutional integration considerations are, what effective delivery service are, and sustainable development, and then finally wrap up. E-government, as we all know, there's been much academic debate around the precise meaning of this term, but for the purpose of my presentation, it means simply collectively the information and communications technologies used to improve the operations and processes of public administration from policy formulation right through to service delivery. It also includes those mechanisms used to engage and connect with stakeholders, extremely important. This is not, I don't really have to go through this, but it was borrowed from eGov for Dev, an exercise that's being undertaken by the University of Manchester in England, but it simply stresses the important aspects of an e-government framework. Now, moving to institutional integration. First of all, what is it? It's really about whole-of-government approaches, connected government, joined-up government. I'm pretty sure most of us are familiar with these terms, but it looks at an enterprise or an organization holistically in terms of how it delivers its services. How is it achieved? Through the application of methods and systems for collaboration. We've heard this repeated over and again in earlier presentations. Cooperation, information sharing, common approaches to cross-cutting issues at and between all levels of government, including the policy level. It's through innovation and information systems that these are generally accomplished, and it provides what is extremely critical for success in a modern-day public administration: transparency, predictability, and accountable frameworks. Now, why is it done? It's done essentially, we've heard it, to improve efficiencies, to cut costs, reduce stakeholder frustration. That's putting the citizen at the center of everything. Improving competitiveness. You don't hear a great deal about improving competitiveness, but I think there's no mistake that you see a move in terms of migration towards those countries that have tackled this issue more effectively, not only because of the opportunities that they present, the commercial opportunities, but also the quality of life that they offer. So it's about jurisdictions and countries' competitiveness. And finally, of course, it promotes growth and sustainable development. I'm trying to get my clicker to do something, but it's not moving. Next slide. Oh, sorry. Moving back to institutional integration. It facilitates effective business process re-engineering to avoid, of course, the garbage in, garbage out syndrome, duplication and replication, the bane of public services. Certain agencies that have common purposes benefit as a first start. We may not have total integration, but I think where agencies can find synergies, that's important. In my country, for example, the Social Security Institution collaborates with the Department of Labor in looking at issues of occupational health and safety. And of course, the Social Security Institution collaborates with the Ministry of Finance to assist in the collection of not only the Social Security tax, but also the taxes that are administered by the Ministry of Finance itself. Next, major government initiatives that require action by more than one government agency will produce a better, more effective, and speedier outcome through an integrated approach. In the Bahamas, in 2003, our government looked at implementing anchor hospitality projects on all the major islands. In order to implement this, the top-level civil service, the permanent secretaries, met as a body on a regular basis and were able, therefore, to tackle the issues that arose through this in relation to this project through a concerted, coherent approach that was fed down through the ministries. So even though the ideal objective is ultimately to move the entire service along, I think there has to be due recognition to the fact that some countries have to do this in phases. And it also facilitates, of course, this is integration, national strategic planning. Now, effective delivery, it's all about public services being designed to be responsive, citizen-centric, and socially inclusive. We've heard, for example, multi-channel delivery options. This is extremely important. Not everybody is computer literate, and so and if we're going to observe the no one left behind mantra of the SDGs, it's important to ensure that services are available to those who may not necessarily feel comfortable or don't have access to ICTs. The idea ultimately, of course, is that there's access anytime, anywhere, and anyhow. It should be convenient, responsive, and 24/7. One way of delivering this, there were many examples we saw today, kiosks and internet cafes can be established in areas where internet penetration and or mobile penetration is insufficient to support widespread use of online or to accommodate online interaction. As I said, we had other wonderful examples that came up in the course of presentations earlier today. Clustering services, we would have heard of this again, around service delivery, around how people naturally live their lives, for example. Ministries' names change. It's very frustrating, confusing when that happens. However, if we cluster services around natural life events like birth, death, working, it's easier for persons then to facilitate or to interact with their governments and get the businesses that they are seeking. Consider satellite offices in remote areas that offer combined services, a one-window entry concept. We saw that in the case of Kenya and also in the case of Azerbaijan. Citizens are not with the internal divisions of government and should not be inconvenienced by these artificial barriers. Integration calls for a robust information system or set of information systems capable of effectively communicating with each other. Retraining of personnel is necessary also to address frontline queries for several agencies, so we're moving towards a more integrated collaborative approach to dealing with the citizen to reduce frustration. Now, sustainable development, all of these are intended to facilitate sustainable development in countries. And sustainable development meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. It requires a balance between social, economic, and environmental objectives. And I think this is very important from my perspective, for the simple reason that the balance is not necessarily just even within a country. It's between states as well. And this is where I think the major challenge for meeting the Sustainable Development Goals is going to occur. 17 Sustainable Development Goals change the world by 2030, and I think 169 targets within those 17 new goals. The SDGs will necessitate unprecedented levels of coordination and cooperation with public administration at the national level, as well as between states, so that the internal and external actions taken by states are done with the objective of the SDGs in mind. ICT solutions will likely become the cooperation and coordination. And I think I can go a step further and say that they will, not that they will likely, but they definitely will be the prime enablers. In addition to the e-enablers discussed, tracking and monitoring to modern public administration become even more important in order to manage and gauge progress with implementation. SDG 16 and 17 of particular interest in relation are because none of them, to my mind, can be implemented without an effective public administration machinery in place. But in particular, I just wanted to draw your attention quickly to SDG 16 and 17. Under Goal 16, there is a to promote the law and equal access to justice. Goal 16 requires promoting peaceful and inclusive societies for sustainable development, the provision of access to justice for all, and building of effective, accountable, and institutions at all levels. Goal 17 requires strengthening the means of implementation and revitalization of the global partnership for sustainable development. In conclusion, I intended to wrap up all that was said before as quickly as I can in the 3 minutes left to me. And I would just like to say that e-government, as it has been for the last decade, is the main bridge to the future for sustainable development. It has the capability to be dynamic, which is the world that we live in, so it can adapt, or at least should adapt, to the expectations of its users. For example, media trends, collaboration with private sector providers that reuse available government data, the open government concept and the reuse of government data. It concerns that I have concerns that developing and less developed countries still face challenges with e-government rollout. It is not cheap, and it also requires being able to deal with the everyday needs of citizens while at the same time design something that's better for them for the future. That in itself is a complex set of dynamics. I would like to take this opportunity to pay particular acknowledgement and respect to the work that's been carried out within DISA, the Department of Economic and Social Affairs within the UN, through its UNPAN platform. Models that provide practical guidance on relevant approaches. It's an invaluable resource for developing and small countries. Sustainable development is about competition for resources, capital, and labor between states. And I had the opportunity of presenting last week on innovation in public service, and I ended essentially by pointing out that unless each country is able to focus on the competitive component of the Sustainable Development Goals and the desirability of it, they stand to lose internal resources that may be directed to other countries that do. They stand to lose capital, they stand to lose potential investments, and they stand, most importantly, to lose their labor that may find that the opportunities in the other countries are better. So that there is an imperative of survival, I think, in the whole thrust towards improvements in public administration in particular to implement the SDGs. Now, before I thank you formally, I just wish to underscore that the workshop number 2 that will be looking at capacity building on this topic of e-government as a driver for integration and sustainable development and effective delivery will go into this topic in a lot more detail. So there's going to be opportunities for those who will be members of that workshop to participate, share experiences that we all can learn from, best practices as well as the challenges and the roadblocks that we may face. And on that note, I wish to thank you.
Thank you so much. We thank all of the presenters for their wonderful presentations, and I now turn the chair over to my accomplished co-chair, Mrs. Mejia.
Muchas gracias. Muchas gracias a todos por las presentaciones.
Everyone for your presentations. We're going to end this roundtable with questions from our audience. We're going to have 15 minutes. In the first 3 minutes so that you can ask your questions. and so that the people here at the table can respond. I'm going to ask each person who's going to maybe ask your questions to introduce yourself and let us know who you would like to answer your question. So you can maybe raise your hand if you're interested in asking a question. Are you hungry? Is that why you don't have questions? Good afternoon. My name is Jorge Pineda, and I'm here from Guatemala. I have a small question for Mr. Ivan Cabno, I believe is the name. When you implemented the service of this system that is unique, you developed it with the public in general to develop an open software, or did you develop it within a private platform? And what is the framework that you're using this with the idea of implementing it in our country as well? Thank you. El señor Karimov, he wants to show you a video before answering the question. And so we're going to give way to the video, and then he will answer the question. ¿Qué es Servicio ASAN? Es parte del desarrollo de Azerbaiyán.
Of independent and progressing Azerbaijan, which is preserving its national features and competing with the leading countries of the world. Asan Service is a one-stop shop body where 9 state entities and a number of private companies render more than 230 services. A citizen benefits from services in a one-stop shop without wasting time and money and encountering unnecessary bureaucracy. The uniqueness of Asan Service is defined by the complete exclusion of conflict of interest during the process of rendering services. Asan Service Centers altogether provide services to more than 15,000 citizens daily, and up to date, approximately 5 million citizens have access to public services through the centers in the course of the last 2.5 years period. Specially equipped buses travel to the regions that do not have an Asan Service Centers and render services right on the spot. So far, over 150,000 citizens have received those services through mobile Asan services. An exit poll held among citizens who applied for services in Asan Service Centers shows that the public satisfaction rate is 98%.
It's very good.
Another proof for such a high rate of public satisfaction is an international certificate and quality management standard ISO 9001-2008 awarded to Asan Service. Asan Service is the main indicator of the improvement of public service delivery in Azerbaijan. More than 10,000 applications for volunteership in Asan Service Centers has been registered, and at present, approximately 500 volunteers are involved in the work of the centers. The State Agency for Public Service and Social Innovations under the President of the Republic of Azerbaijan is applying the Asan 2 concept as the next stage of the development of public service delivery in Azerbaijan. By completely minimizing contacts between a civil servant and a citizen, the Asan 2 concept will provide for more efficiency and raise public service delivery to the level of perfection. Innovations and the principles of transparency, ethical behavior, and the sense of responsibility applied in Asan Service Centers are built upon the best characteristics of the people of Azerbaijan and are directly linked to the development of our country. Asan Service is an inherent component of the political and economic system established in Azerbaijan. The system brings to the forefront important issues, such as accessibility for the citizens, social responsibility before the public, future perspectives, etc.
Thank you. And now I will respond to the question. The microphone. As you could witness from the presentations, ASAN has mandates in two directions. First is the organization and establishment of service centers, and the second is the development e-services. And if I understood well the involvement of the private sector in this process, in both processes, the involvement of private sector, of the public in general, is a vital condition. In ASAN, we provide 250 services, and I would say that more than nearly half of the services are private sector services. And this model is unique, and we have not taken this system from any, I would say, country, but nevertheless it's based on one-stop shop principle. Of course, we haven't invented the bicycle, but we made it more performant and more well-functioning. And the second part is the e-government model. This e-government system of Azerbaijan also is based on best practices, and we have a unique e-government portal where you can get from a single portal more than 500 e-services. But the goal in the future is to transform totally e-government principle to the m-government in the coming years. So I don't know if I responded to the question properly.
He was asking if the platform that you use for the e-government services is an open platform or use private software to build that platform. Because they in Guatemala would like to implement something like you did.
I mean, open platform. There is open part, of course, but there is also private part. Azerbaijan applies X-road system. It's a state-run project where many state services could be got accessible.
Thank you.
If Guatemala wants to electronize its services, public services, of course, there will be a Guatemalan model of provision of digitalization, of provision of e-services, of course, taking in mind the best practices.
Thank you. Is there any other question there? Thank you.
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Janeiri Boyer y vengo del Perú. Mi pregunta va para ver.
From Peru. My question for Albaster. I work for. No, I have no sound.
No sound? No sound?
Oh, we're good. There was a reform in 2013 that we are currently in the process of implementing. One of the subjects that we're working on with international cooperation has to do with policies of gender equality. Part of the study that we've been carrying out, we found some public policies related to the general access and the maintenance of activity for these services and processes of coaching for certain personnel and greater access for women to said services and processes. So in the information that you have and the processes that you have access to, do you know any processes on gender equality that you might be able to share with us? Yes, of course, there are many practices. Right now, I might not be able to mention one in specific, but still, for us, the basic characteristic is that in all of these practices, there shouldn't be a detriment of what has to do with in what we call decent employment. This is to say that although it is a practice that might be flexible, it shouldn't affect processes of social security, for example, and affect processes that might mean that flexibility might reduce benefits of pension, or that it might imply lower pensions than what might have been provided to a man in the same conditions. So there isn't a unified model, but we do need to seek a model that can allow certain flexibility, that can have in mind the need of a consolidation between labor life and personal life, and avoid discrimination to women, which in many cases might imply a reduction in their benefits, and have them eventually end up with much lower pension rates. So the principles should be based on the avoidance of any discrimination toward women, because then we wouldn't be really achieving a conciliation of that work life / personal life. We're going to receive one last question. I think here at the front, Yolanda from Mexico. I've introduced her already. Okay, thank you very much. Congratulations to all of our panelists. This is for the three presenters on public services. I think that one of the greatest challenges we face is the financing. How do we achieve, for example, in the case of Kenya, which changed its service centers radically. All of this requires a mechanism that can guarantee an excellent provision of public service. So I would like to know what strategies are taking place behind this transformation to guarantee the sustainability of this model for service provision. Rowena, ayúdanos.
Stab at it. I think what's important is the recognition at all levels of government that this is a change. It's not a transition, or it's not an interim, rather than transition, not an interim program. It's a change, and it's a change that's being done to meet the expectations of the citizens, and also to ensure that the country is able to provide for its own sustainability in the future. The cost is something obviously that is of, I think, deep concern to many countries that would wish to embark on this exercise. I find that also the juggling or balancing how you continue to provide public service while at the same time preparing for this change, which is going to be, their cost implications, is something that they all struggle with in many ways, which is why I mentioned in particular the work that had been done by the United Nations in providing best practices, models, some technical assistance in this area as well. It doesn't sort of, I guess, answer the question directly in terms of the cost, but I think it's something that has to be planned, not as an immediate exercise, but something that has to be planned for the long term as part of some type of national development plan, so that the budgeting is done commensurately over a period and within periods to meet the program and the strategy that may have been adopted. But I do believe that it's not very much an issue of if, it's a matter of survivability, and I encourage, as best as I'm able to, all countries to look at it very seriously, because many countries are losing out, particularly when their young people opt not to return, because the quality of life that they were expecting and the opportunities that they were looking for are not there.
Mr. Hassan, could you please help us with an answer?
Thank you. Just like my sister said, government is not driven by profit. Government is driven by service to citizens, and you cannot quantify the services in terms of monetary value. It's about change, And the net benefit of a change in a country is so significant to the extent that you cannot be able to quantify in terms of monetary value. However, the question of sustainability is a long-term process, but the issue is that are we going to get our acts right by making sure that we provide the best of services that are competitive enough? Because if you provide the best of services, the net benefit is enormous to the economy, to the citizens' well-being. And therefore, I think for now, the question of sustainability. Of course, we generate revenue. Government generates revenue through the Huduma platforms. But that's not really what our focus is for now. Thank you.
Thank you. Finally, Mr. Inam.
Thank you. In Azerbaijan, the establishment of Asan service centers, when in the phase of establishment, was the indicator of the well-being of Azerbaijan economy, because the first centers were financed from the state budget, and the state allocated additional budget for the establishment of these centers. But in the long term, it will be a program, an institutional reform, which will help cut costs and which will help to the state to economize resources, because we have put together many ministries. At the beginning, these services are alternative. It means that you can come to Asan service centers or go to the classical, let's say, service centers. So in the long run, it will be a reform that will help the state finances, state budget to finance, to economize budgets. But if Asan service centers are in a state, if tomorrow state takes its hands off from the Asan service centers, the centers will be able to self-finance themselves. So the sustainability of the services are guaranteed. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Now I want to invite Mr. John Marie. John Marie. I want to invite you, and please tell us what follows.
Thank you very much. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I must start by apologizing that as a facilitator at the beginning, I needed to be facilitated. But I have followed the discussion, the very interesting discussion, both from the presenters and the participants. I have followed the comments, and I think it was a very good and fruitful session. Now, what I have to do is to make sure that I make everyone understand the readjustments that need to be made in terms of the time we have lost. What, as a facilitator, I wish to propose to you is that we commit to ourselves that today we will finish the program that is on the program of today, so that tomorrow we start on a clean plate. And this is what I'm proposing. We were supposed to have closed this session at 1:30. It is now coming to 2, which means we have lost 30 minutes of lunch. We are supposed to reconvene at 2:30. I propose that we reconvene at 3. By the time we reconvene here at 3, I will have readjusted the program to make sure that we finish what we have on the agenda today. Does that sound good? Okay, that sounds good. So, Mr. Chairman, with that agreement, you can close the session so that people can go for lunch, but I think there will be announcements from the Master of Ceremony. Thank you very much.
Thank you, John Marie. Bueno, ahora por último, entonces le vamos a dar la palabra a nuestro relator, que nos va a hacer un resumen de lo que vivimos en esta mesa redonda. Relator. ¿No están listos? ¿Cómo? Ah, bueno. Entonces, que no. Me dicen que no va a haber relatoría. Entonces nos vamos a almorzar. Muchas gracias y nos vemos más tarde.
Muchas gracias a los participantes de esta discusión por sus valiosas intervenciones. Agradecemos a quienes nos siguen a través del streaming y en redes sociales. Los invitamos a un receso para almorzar. Nuestro personal de apoyo les indicará el recorrido. Les esperamos de regreso en el auditorio a las 3 para retomar esta interesante agenda. No olviden sus artículos personales e igualmente para quienes nos siguen a través del streaming, esperamos que no pierdan sintonía. Disfruten su almuerzo.